Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North is a combat decorated U.S. Marine, #1 best-selling author. He is the host of War Stories on Fox News Channel. It is an honor to welcome back to the show Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Colonel, good morning, sir. How are you?
Sergio, great to be with you again. Thank you.
Tell me about your new book, American Heroes on the Home Front. It's a collection of stories of veterans that recently came back?
Well, it's and of course what happened to them over there. This is a third book in a trilogy of these American heroes, the what I call the brightest, best, and bravest of their generation who volunteered to go off and fight starting on 9/11/01. First time in American history since the American Revolution where every single person in uniform in time of war is a volunteer.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
And they all came, if you ask them. I mean, I've not talked to anybody who didn't say this. Why did you join the military? I've done this 10,000 times if I've done it once. Why did you join the military? Well, I wanted to serve my country after 9/11. I wanted to protect my homeland. I wanted to protect my people. So why did you join this branch of service? Well, in almost every case, it's, well, my dad served in the Army, or my uncle served in the Navy, or I knew my cousin or my grandfather was in World War II in the Marines, that kind of thing. And so there's two things that are evident to me. One, they've grown up with a sense of service to something other than themselves. And number two, and most of that, by the way, implanted by their families. And number two, they knew somebody who had served before. So the military, which is tiny today by comparison to what it was when I came in the Marines in 1961, my dad serving in World War II, 16.5 million people in uniform, the military is tiny by comparison to what it was. Here's some great news. To an extraordinary extent, they want to stay in the military, and they want to continue to serve our country, even though they've suffered, in some cases, grievous injuries. And the love that you see in their family members is inspiring to me. You know, there's the stories, and none of this stuff is staged in this book. You know, the battlefield stuff is real. Some of it's pretty graphic. We had to get a lot of special permission, Sergio, to do this.
Yeah.
To go into the hospitals, to go into the family homes. And as a general practice, the military does not allow them to do it.
Yeah.
I told them two things. One, I won't put anybody on television or in this book that doesn't want to be there. And number two, we're not going to tell the bad guys things they don't need to know.
Okay.
So there's no classified information in it. There is some, as you've seen it, over 250 photographs, some pretty graphic photos that you would never see on Fox News for all the obvious reasons.
Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North is host of War Stories on Fox News Channel. We're talking about a collection of interviews that he put together into a book, American Heroes on the Home Front. Colonel, how many service members did you interview for this book?
Well, this essentially has about 75 people who are either service members themselves or their family members or loved ones who are connected to them.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is a if you will, a capsule of, in round numbers, 37,000 wounded who were hurt very badly in this war, many of whom would not have survived in any other war. And so all of the process, either meeting them on the battlefield and then seeing them later in the hospital, and then following them over the course of the many months of rehabilitation. And you can see it. I mean, some of the photographs are pretty vivid, where you can see on the battlefield, in that immediate trauma right afterwards, in the step-by-step process of getting back to the States, sometimes in less than 48 hours.
Yeah.
Mostly 72 to 96 hours, they're suddenly back in the States, and then there's their loved ones by their bedside. You can just look in the eyes in some of those photographs.
Colonel, would you
healthy.
say that our country is meeting their medical needs or psychological needs?
Certainly the military is. The military medical process today, as I've seen it over the course of now 50 years, is so much better than it ever has been before. Best in the world. There's no place on earth that can treat trauma as well as our military. The problem is with the VA. The transition takes 20 to 22 months, which is unconscionable. I mean, if you think Obamacare is a disaster, think of that. And when they get into the VA system, it's like they've got a sign over the door that says, nothing but the best for our troops, but that's just what they'll give them, nothing. and I can't understand how that can be, except to know that most of the people working for the VA are not veterans. They should be. Most of the people in Congress have never served. They should have. And we've got the lowest percentage of people in political office today who have ever been involved in any kind of military. I mean, You've got a governor who was in the military. The governor of South Carolina, her husband is in Afghanistan right now.
Yeah.
That's so rare in America today. It's mind-numbing, and we got to fix that.
The criticism of the VA is plentiful, and I hear plenty of stories and complaints related to that and how they fall short in trying to meet all of the need. Is perhaps a better solution to go more with private help that is rapidly reimbursed, or find a new mechanism to allow? 'Cause most of these veterans live in markets where they do have providers that can give them services immediately if they are able to flash a card and say, "Look, I'm covered. Please help me."
You've got the answer. And in fact, I suggested that way back when President George Herbert Walker Bush was running for re-election against Bill Clinton's first term. And I said to him, we were at the VFW convention in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I said, what you ought to be doing instead of creating a new Department of Veterans Affairs, which they did, is give every veteran who has a service-connected disability a card, and let them go to any medical provider they want, anywhere, and they will get that medical care for that service-connected disability taken care of, and shut down all these enormous facilities that are mostly empty anyway, because they were built for the aftermath of World War II, and they wanted to warehouse veterans. So I've seen them. I've been in them. As a kid, I used to go to veterans hospitals. I've been in a veterans hospital. I mean, I've got a fairly decent one not far from where I live in Virginia. There's a terrific one in Richmond, Virginia, but there's not enough good ones, and there's way too many bed spaces. What they ought to be doing is just giving every guy a veteran, just like you just said, give every veteran a card that says American veteran, and he's got the following sicknesses, illnesses, maladies, or recovering from such and such, and they shall be treated by your hospital, and we will reimburse you, or your medical practice, whatever it is. Yeah, it's just nuts to do it the way we are.
And prioritize the reimbursement to the private health providers, because under the craziness that exists right now, some of them are leaving Medicaid and the government programs and Obamacare. They don't want to participate with,
we don't blame them.
Because of the reimbursement rates. We got to prioritize our veterans and take care of them first.
I have a son-in-law who's a doctor who's married to my nurse daughter. And I can tell you, he goes 60, 90, 180 days to be paid a third of what he actually was worth, right? So, I mean, the system, the federal system is broken. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. You don't have to put the veteran into a system where they themselves or the doctors that treat them are screwed, because all you'd have to do is have a card that says it's kind of like a debit card. Just draw down on that account and fire the tens of thousands of people sitting in the bureaucracy, and just put a couple of good accountants in there to pay the bills.
The name of the book, American Heroes on the Home Front. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, host of War Stories on Fox News Channel, our guest on 710 KURV. Before we let you go, Colonel, I'm wondering of some of the folks that you had a chance to interview that might be able to work and they want to work, have they told you if it is difficult for them to gain employment? Because I've heard that story from folks that come back from the front lines, that the able-bodied ones, they're having trouble finding employment.
Yes, they are. In fact, the unemployment rate for veterans of this war is almost twice the national average. The VA claims that they're doing something to address it. I point out to you that the war has been going on for over 12 years, and they've done nothing about it. They started a couple of these programs where you'd go up on the websites, and it's kind of like the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. You can't navigate through it. If you're an employer looking for somebody or someone who wants to be employed and you're a veteran, try to work your way through that maze of trying to find a job.
I find it incredulous. Yeah. Loyalty, the work ethic is there.
Responsibility, commitment, dedication, all of the qualities you'd want in a great employee have already been demonstrated by these guys. And my hope and I mean this, my prayer, Sergio, is that people will read this book and make a renewed commitment, particularly here on the year in the nearness of Veterans Day.
Yes, sir.
That they will make a renewed commitment to look for places in which these guys don't want sympathy. They don't want to be pitied. They don't want people to, oh, poor you. They don't want to be victims. They do want and need a decent job, and they can do it better than almost anyone. I mean, they have proven themselves.
Colonel, thank you for your time, and we wish you the best in this coming holiday season. We'll keep in touch there.
If you would just send people to olivernorth.com on your website, they can get signed copies of the whole trilogy.
You bet, sir. Thank you much.
Thanks, Brent. Bye.
Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, author of American Heroes on the Home Front on 710 KURV.